Hello and welcome to a nail art tutorial. As usual, I'm starting off with a fake tip that I glued on my natural nail obviously, and I also buffed it just so the paint won't slip around as much. The paint I'm using is just very cheap acrylic paint and a cheap, well, painting brush. It's not officially a nail art brush, but you just need a really teeny tiny thin brush. And I'm just painting the backdrop first, and I'm going to let it dry for approximately 5 million years because you don't want to seal in moisture underneath acrylic. And then I'm going to apply acrylic, file the acrylic, buff the acrylic, and then paint on the actual painting. Yeah, just so you get a little bit more depth. And then I'm going to let that dry for another 5 million years and put gel top coat on top of it. And then we're done. But yeah, that's the technical talk. Now about what I'm gonna paint on my nails today. This time, unlike most times when I do a myth nail art, I don't have a specific story as inspiration. I just have general myths of the sea as my inspiration here. One particular myth which we'll get to later. But just in general, I really love myths and legends and old sailor stories, all the things that have to do with the sea. I just think they're so cool, and there's so many creepy stories about the sea. I once read a story about a guy, well actually they were twins, there were two guys, they were twins, and they were both in love with the same girl, and then the girl fell in love with one of them, and they were both sailors, and then there was a storm, and one of them pushed the other overboard, because he wanted to take the brother's place and date the girl. It was really weird actually. And then they were constantly whispering or hearing the whispers, did they hum it or whistle? I think they whistled it actually, a tune that the dead brother used to whistle. And yeah, the ship was haunted, so from that point on it was sort of a ghost ship. And then at the end of the story, the brother, the dead drowned brother, came back to drag his murder brother out into the sea and drown him. Fun times. Anyway, that sort of stories. There's also heaps of stories about ghost ships, obviously. We'll get to the Flying Dutchman, for example, in another nail art. And just in general, ships that actually, also in real life, actually just showed up randomly without anyone on board. Which is kind of weird, I guess. But yeah, and a lot of stories come down to, well, basically they didn't have science yet, or at least not, well, they had science, but not they didn't know as much about science and about marine biology as well as we do now, obviously, so they could just freely make their own explanations for things, which were oftentimes a lot cooler than actual reality. For example, there's also actually truth probably behind the story of the Kraken, or just, sea monsters in general. Because back in the day, I mean, I can imagine during a storm, if you see a giant squid, you will probably think it was a monster. So that's probably how the stories about sea monsters actually started to exist. But yeah, the particular myth that I chose to paint on my nails this time is the story, or at least the myth of ghost lights. So basically they believed that dead sailors, who died at sea, could come back as floating lights that would show up during a storm. Now there's probably some sort of natural explanation for that, but back then they believed that the floating lights they could sometimes see around the ship in a storm were actually the spirits of dead sailors. And that could also be a bad sign or a good sign depending on who you'd ask. So because some people would believe that it was a sign that the ship was being protected by the spirits, others would see it as an omen of doom. Because, well, I guess some people are more positive than others or something. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So I decided to just paint the front of the ship basically facing upwards from the water, and the ghost lines around it. Now one thing I do wish I would have done differently with this nail art, I should have made an outline in white, or make it look like there was thunder in the background, so the ship would the edges of the ship would light up. Because as it is, there is very little difference between the darkness of the background and the darkness of the foreground. The ship is just as dark as the sky beyond it, so it barely actually is visible. Unless you really look at the nail from very closely with very bright lights on, like in this video. So yeah, should have done it differently, but on the bright side, at least the white ghost lights do really stand out, and that's I guess the most important thing. Then, like I said, we're gonna seal in everything with top coat and the nail art is done. It is a short one, but I really do hope you liked it nevertheless. If you did like it, please click the like button, it would really help me out. And if you want to, you can also subscribe to my channel, because I actually do nail art regularly, but I actually do makeup tutorials more often. So yeah, if you want to see, please subscribe. But yeah, that is the final part of this nail art video. I really hope you enjoyed watching it. Thank you very much for watching at any rate, and I really hope to see you next time. Bye!